Okay, I said we were going to start at 10 past and have Lo join us. I can also ping him here in just a little bit on Twitter if I need to. But thank you for those of you who have come and come close to relatively on start time down there in the audience. And I want to thank you to our speakers that are joining us today. I'm really excited about this conversation. And this group has been very gracious in sort of what has been a hectic week for us around planning. So I appreciate that. I am Jacqueline Rosales, and I am president of ISA, which is a data and insights company. We actually specialize in emerging market research. I've been in the market research space, data and analytics and insights for more than 27 years. And we are highly specialized in go-to-market strategy. And our biggest category of explosion right now is around guiding our clients on the go-to-market research around their Web3 strategy for entering the space. So it's been quite crazy. We are here every Thursday night at 5 o'clock. Quick overview of our format tonight is we're going to spend 45 minutes up here with our panelists, our experts, and then we open up and anyone is welcome to come up to our stage. Our stage is open, meaning that if you would like to ask the speakers a question, if you would like to share about a project you're excited about, if you want to share about something related to the topic that you're working on, all of those things are totally fine. We know that sometimes folks have differing opinions in this space. We also welcome that. However, we do also require that everybody be respectful of one another. Sometimes emotions flare. If we send you down to the audience for a bit, if that happens, it's just to give you a breather. We'll bring you back up when we think you're ready. And at the same time, I love hearing the variety of opinions, and respectful, collaborative disagreements are welcome. So tonight, we are going to spend our time together diving into, really talking about like how DAOs, decentralized Web3, and what does that impact? What are the effects on centralized organizations there? So thank you to our speakers. I'm super, super excited to hear from you guys. I think we should kick off maybe, there's a couple things. First, I want to have a quick intro, like literally like 2-minute highlight reel, right? Who you are, why you're here, and then maybe share with us like what your current like pump up song is to get you going every day, or when you really need a boost of energy. And then I think after that, we'll do a quick intro, and then maybe if you guys wouldn't mind, we talk a lot about education, onboarding, the importance of understanding. So I'll ask each of you, for your own definition or definition of decentralization and definition of DAOs. So first, I'd love to get started. Journalist, maybe you could kick us off with sort of your 2-minute trailer, if you would, and feel free to let us know what that soundtrack would be.
Whoa, you mean song-wise?
One more time.
Song-wise, you mean? My song?
Yep.
My son makes fun of me all the time for this, but I put on Turn Down for What?
I love it.
I love it because it's just so rude and just, it's got a lot of energy to it. And there's a video that I love to play when I put it on. So I put on the video on my iMac. And of course, he thinks I'm an outdated dad because that song's kind of old now.
That video is awesome, though.
Yeah, it totally is. And at the time it came out, it was everything, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I totally love it. And like journalists, I've known you now, like, whatever, a little over a year, which in Web3 is like a decade. And I definitely say, like, if I would have been given a multiple choice question and that was on it, I would not have guessed it was your choice. And then tell us a little bit, journalist, about yourself as it's related to the topic today.
Okay. So I'm a journalist by trade in the cryptoverse, but I'm also quite active in a few DAOs. The most active in a governance DAO with Harmony One, which they have an initiative for 10,000 DAOs by the year 2026. And so there are 9 governance DAOs that oversee 10 DAOs each in part of their $300 million investment into DAOs. And then it's a best practices, very hands-on, hand-holding, helping DAOs succeed. And then those 10 DAOs then do the same for 10 more DAOs. And like I mentioned, the goal then is by 2026 to have 10,000 prosperous DAOs. And the thing that they realized when they were giving away money for DAOs and to start them and seed them and everything was that there wasn't a lot of direction for the DAOs. And we're ending up with a lot of zombie DAOs, which are just people that have kind of walked away or took their hands off the wheel, etc. And so this initiative by Harmony is meant to kind of, quell that loss of money, just kind of going away into nothing and getting real results. And I'm also part of a DAO called the Storytime DAO, which is pretty awesome. We've reached our charter now, and we're ready to move forward. We've created our sort of mission and our code of conduct and what we attempt to achieve with it. And it's a pretty cool nonprofit situation that actually empowers storytellers to make money under the nonprofit umbrella, but it just means how we structured it and how it relates to current DAO laws and legislation, and as well as decentralization issues. We specifically came up with a model that was going to ensure that there was going to be no top-down type governance or way of manipulating the decisions or activities of the DAO.
Oh, I love it. We'll definitely dive a lot more into that, especially once we sort of define things. But I think, some of us have been aware of, different challenges. And as this category begins to grow, I think it's important, as we start talking about sort of whatever, but I don't want to say best practices because everything is different, but really having the tools, right? Regardless of what kind of side we're on, creator, consumer, owner, whatever, that really allow us to thrive and not cause our people to, lose their money. So I totally appreciate that. Thank you. Paul, how about you? We would love to hear your pump up music. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into some defining.
Well, my pump up music would have to be a band called Architects. Modern Misery would or Colony Collapse would be my song. Very brutal, definitive of our times. So if you know, you know. If you don't, you're welcome. Band called Architects.
Thank you.
I run a company called 40 Fun. We specialize in volumetric content creation and deployment of virtual spaces and community transactions between creator and consumers within virtual spaces such as Oculus and other spatial computing devices.
I love it.
Stuff.
Yeah. I love it.
But we are content creators facilitating movement of artistry within these metaverse environments that I feel is a giant bubble. Without content and entertainment within it, it's just an empty venue to sell ads in. And until there's a proper value proposition, much like you mentioned, utility, the utility of entertainment. Entertainment sells everything, always has and always will. So until there's proper integration of entertainment into this metaverse, for lack of a better term, there's just going to be an inflated bubble. And that's what I do is allow proper movement of proper utility into these virtual spaces by creating a portal for artists to easily enter and deploy themselves, secured through blockchain protocols.
Interesting. And what was your, prior to Web3, what was your background?
I was a musician for a long time. I just partied for about 20 years and toured.
Yeah.
And then I developed my own streaming platform when the first Roku and Amazon Fire Stick came out. It was a cross-platform API distribution system, and that got me into deployment strategies and direct creation to consumer methods, which ultimately led to rapid creation of content and fourth dimensional creation of content and natural progression into the securities of distribution and the future of it, which is Web 3.0.
He's being humble, though. He was a drummer in one of the bigger bands and a big part of the punk rock movement of the 90s and early 2000s.
I had a good time, and I'll just leave it at that.
I love it. I often find that one of the things that I identify with most and love about the Web3 community is typically the insane humbleness. And it usually takes someone else to like speak up on someone else's behalf if they do a good job pitching themselves. We're like, hey, wait a second here. You can to know more, but I love it. Super fun. So maybe you guys could just give us like a basic definition. I hear terms, oftentimes like intertwined incorrectly, right? As it relates to how individuals even think like, what is DeFi and what isn't DeFi? I guess that's a good way for me to pose the question. Micah, you want to jump us off here?
On the subject of DeFi,
yeah, help give us a definition. Like, what is DeFi? What is decentralization? What is it not? Whether that means currently or what it's intended to be.
Well, the decentralized part is the key to the whole DeFi thing because, we've had finance forever. The decentralized aspect is typically meaning it's not top down, it's not owned by an entity that is private and makes decisions via, its own structure or internal sort of leverage within via, shares or votes, etc. This is a system that is often trustless, which means instead of walking into your bank and you have tattoos and long hair and your banker's like judging you and deciding you don't get the loan. Trustless is all about if the checks the boxes check and the T's cross and the I's dot, then you get the loan, and that's not a human making that decision, but an automated process for the most part. So autonomy often comes with decentralization as a way to remove the human component. But decentralized means if humans are involved, that it isn't top down, and it does mean that there is a democratic way that decisions are made and that entities operate.
Great, thank you. Very clear. Anything you have there to add? Anybody on stage, including you, Craig, around that before we move on to more discussion about kind of what is a DAO and how do these work?
I think journalist pretty much nailed it on the head. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah, great. Okay, so very clear. So if we need to refer back to that at any point in this discussion, we definitely can. So tell us a little bit about DAOs, what DAOs are, why they are so important to the industry. Will they and how will they impact creators overall? I'd love to just kind of open that up. Whoever can jump in.
Well, DAOs in general, by their definition, decentralized autonomous organizations, they build on this idea of decentralization, but it's not just about sort of how they're founded and what that ethos is, but also what's written into the code that allows them to autonomously work that way because it's been written into the very way that it operates. So again, it's going away from top down. And if there is advisory or people in leadership roles, it's usually flat or across versus up and down. And those people are delivering roles that humans have to do towards what this DAO has been designed to or created to achieve. So there's usually like an intent or an objective, some need or a problem that's being solved. Even though now we are and have been since DAOs began, seen a lot of investment type DAOs where there is no voting, there is no democracy. They've just formed under this, premise of a DAO, but they don't necessarily operate as such. But it provides an entity and an apparatus for those people to share the wealth and decisions made by a person. But a lot of those DAOs are really not DAOs in the traditional sense of like what a DAO is supposed to be.
Got it. Makes sense. And what do you think, related to DAOs, some of the benefits are, or what are some of the impacts going to be? I've heard a lot about the impact on creators, the ability to, fund and fan bases and all kinds of interesting things. I'd be curious from your aspect or point of view, what you think is going to be a benefit of this DAO explosion. DAO explosion. Then we'll talk about all the drawbacks and what's happening and how we recognize scams. But for now, let's talk about the positives.
Certainly, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Anyone?
Go ahead. Go ahead, journalist. Go.
I was just going to say, I do see as this space matures, what DAOs are capable of evolving and maturing to the same way NFTs right now. Art tends to be like the leading kind of it set the tone and it's brought a lot of people into the game, but it's really the technology of NFTs that is the biggest promise. And as we go further down the line, there's going to be better, more effective, really ingenious uses of the technology, blockchain technology, and crypto, and the encrypted aspects. So I see DAOs as being the same thing. We're starting to see DAOs that really have very specific objectives, philanthropic objectives, and they're going to endure without necessarily being led by anybody, based on the members who are all passionate about a thing, and nobody has to lift their too much weight other than participating in voting, deciding how these things operate, and then a small number of people that are needed to execute, that don't make up the autonomous aspect. And so we can see some great things happen, maybe replacing maybe government structures that used to do certain things. Maybe we can start to see DAOs have a more utilitarian use for society in general.
Yeah, and what about the like the impacts on brands? And I'd be curiously to hear, from you or Craig or Paul also, what you think as we talk about like the idea of like replacing traditional finance and government. Do you all feel strongly that as a society or culture or whatever we want to say, that we will be able to avoid government interference here?
If I may.
You may.
I think it's going to be impossible to circumnavigate around government interference, purely because of the rat race and the money grab that is happening right now. Most of the issues are people don't understand what it is to be used for. They just understand there's big money transactions. But as a individual who recently had to learn how to start a company, fund a company, and work with investors, it's a very interesting proposition as far as intellectual property developed by an individual, which eventually forms a company. But then we can get into securing intellectual property as we used to know it, through patents. And when you file a patent, then you then have to form a company, then fundraise and do all these tactics, which ultimately lead you to deploying a product. But then this product, the value of the profits get shared with those invested, and so on. So what we see is a new architecture of what can be applied to a lot of functions when it comes to creating a product for consumers, whether it be art or what the fuck ever. Digital objects sell more than physical objects. So toys, in the form of gamified objects that can be built with interoperability and distributed through all these functionalities. What we're going to see is not just a transference of how we participate in the distribution of funds and the receiving of funds, but what we're going to see is a new digital boom, much like the Industrial Revolution, where it's product oriented, simply because the money and the value proposition and the lack of physical need for redistribution. This is hyper appealing to any company, anyone, especially if you raise money or distribute, period. So in order to facilitate that proper reorganization of how we act as humans, governing forces are always going to be the deciding factor of how these are deemed proper, right? But the big problem will be money. Ultimately, when $6 trillion in digital goods was sold, Senate immediately had a hearing about it, wondering how can they get their hands on it. And this is going to be a big problem globally, not just here in America. when you think of a decentralized system, it's a global system. So there's no rules yet. But the fact that there's no rules means, it's just run and gun right now. And a lot of people are building systems made just to walk away from, purely because they are autonomous. Right. And now that's going to become a very dirty fucking scene just because of the things that are being created now because of the ability to facilitate criminal deeds easily. So then you get into the need to redefine the industry, much like the dot-com bubble, when the internet settled into what it is, and then what it would be. A lot was left behind. And that's what's going to happen right now, just due to the pollution of the water. Once it settles, it's going to be much different. But government interference is just a moment away. Long story short.
I'd be curious what anyone else has to say on the fact of government interference. And when you even mentioned that, like, what do you think in terms of timelines? Like, is there a way to avoid this? Should we avoid this?
Do you think our government's going to want? Do you think our government's going to want to lose another $6 trillion next year?
I mean,
Nate, I'd love you to.
Do a good job at it.
I mean, let's just be honest. That's a lot of taxable income.
Uncle Nate, I'd love you to chime in based on what you shared with me, because I'll first say this: the flavor of politics is greatly going to affect this. If we see the return of Donald Trump, they're going to be hands off with a lot of stuff, because a lot of their ethos and a lot of their supporters believe certain things. There's a lot of libertarian belief system built into all of this, and I do not think that they're going to be pressing for legislation the same way that a democratic government would. They're all sort of caught up in a lot of other things right now, or we would have seen legislation already. It's just, hey, there's a war in Ukraine, and this other stuff that keeps them from kind of honing in on us. But it is coming. I completely agree with the previous speaker. However, what I just picked up from Nate, the right is really doing everything they can to dismantle these systems that would be our legislative clamp. So, Nate, did you want to chime in on this?
May I, real quick? I think the point of all of our anticipation of a decentralized system is because of the dysfunctional government we have. So to say one side is functional is completely irrational when both are made to combat each other, so no progress is made at all. One will shine the light on the other the next election, one will shine the light on the other next election, and someone's going for someone. And it's just a fucking facade. It's all a game. It's all a show. And that is the point. That's why we're all battling for this. Not to say that we're reliant on one side or another, because it's detrimental from one side or another. It's detrimental from both sides. This system eliminates our need from them. Let's just talk about self-preservation, human instinct, right? It's our government's instinct, not just to survive, but to grow. And this whole system is nothing but a death march for them. So to be reliant on anyone, and I myself am a libertarian, and I firmly believe they will not drive any kind of forward progression to this movement or any party whatsoever, because it's detrimental to their cause, period. It's death for all.
Anyone else want to kind of chime in around that? If you think, it's inevitable and you kind of can't disagree that it's happening, like, what do you guys have any like opinions or predictions as it relates to timelines, or what do you think kind of regulations are going to come first in the space?
Definitely inevitable. And the first stuff I foresee as being, all these breach of securities laws. I see that as low-hanging fruit, and then I'll be quiet and let someone else chime in.
The whole system is a securities. I mean, if you look up the definition of securities fraud, it's like the whole system, guys. It's every NFT on the market. It's every crypto coin. It's all of them. Every rug gets pulled. If that were a publicly or privately traded company, everyone would be in prison.
There are already laws.
People
are breaking them constantly, and they just don't realize that they are. So, I mean, it's not like there's new regulations that are necessary. regulations already exist. It's just how people are choosing to interpret
but
things.
when we talk about regulation, you're talking about American regulation. For example, those regulations don't hold in Ukraine, right? Or Venezuela, or Romania, or anywhere, for example, other than America.
I
And
think
when
we're hearing an echo. I'm sorry, between like Paul and Uncle Nate. I'm hearing like a repeat echo, so I can't hear what's being said.
how about now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
24% of the NFT market is in Pacific Island region. Okay, so if 24% of the NFT market is in the Pacific Island region, who gives a fuck about American guidelines?
Yep, that's what I was waiting to chime in for. Like, this is, it doesn't matter. I mean, we know what's going to happen here. They're going to come down. They're going to do whatever they can to try to stop it. But really, this is an international scene. This is not just based in America. This is going to be eventually decentralized countries versus centralized countries. In the same way, there's democracy versus communism.
That is
or
exactly
socialism.
it. Nailed it.
Hey, Lo, you came into a passionate point in our discussion. Welcome.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, feel free to chime in. And I know that we kind of did some intros and kickoff questions at the beginning, so also feel free to introduce yourself as one of our featured speakers tonight.
Okay. I think I'm slowly but surely becoming the DAO guy. Somebody asked me a question today. Well, damn, how many DAOs are you in? And I honestly couldn't respond. So one thing I'll say is I agree 100% with the Derby. It is going to be decentralized countries versus centralized countries. And I dare you to tell me who is going to be labeled as the evil empire. Right?
So what do you think the impact of the community like here in America is going to be?
Who cares? Honestly. Honestly. Who cares?
Does it mean that people just like they move, they operate under like
I mean, to be honest with you, right? That's like saying, are we concerned with copyright law in Paraguay? It's one country.
Yep.
It's one country.
The problem, though, is that if you're an American citizen, you're subject to American laws, and if you're a Paraguay citizen, you're subject to Paraguay laws.
Yep.
And if either of those countries have signed any international treaties, then you're subject to those international treaties of the laws that were signed in those countries that you're citizens of. So you can't just like wish it away like it's going to go away because you pretend it's going to go away.
No, but that's not the actual factual, though, right? The actual factual is though that. Well, listen to me. The actual factual is that when we're talking about being on the internet and being decentralized, you're not a person, you're a wallet. The wallet
That's not factual. That's not factual.
They gotta find you, right?
If I have a website in China and you're an American citizen, I have to make sure that you're not on that site. And I have to
Hold on one second. Sorry, I just needed to mute you guys for 1 second. We're gonna do one mic. So Lo, I want you to finish your thought, and then Uncle Nate, I want you to then be able to have a chance to rebut. Is that fair enough? For those of you who also don't know, other than Respectful Stage, I have a brain injury, and so when multiple people talk, it messes my head. So Lo,
sorry, I thought he was done.
Nate, yeah, finish. Then Nate join in. Awesome. In the Lo, if you were finished, great. Then Nate, it's all your turn.
Okay. So what I was saying is that there has existed and will continue to exist 2 or 3 worlds, right? There's a market, there's a black market, and there's a gray market. These things are not going to change. There are going to be some people who are not a part of the centralized, regulated world. Now we're going to have a viable option, which is a lot safer than the black market, which will be a decentralized market. That's what I'm saying.
Got it. Nate, take it away.
Yeah, all I was saying was that regardless of where that market is or who's participating in it, you don't have a black market unless you have laws that define what that black market is and what is illegal, right? So it all lies on a system of laws that are meshed and intermeshed. And unfortunately, in the blockchain space, I mean, I've been doing this for almost a decade. There's a lot of belief that just adopting these tools or implementing DAOs or embracing cryptocurrency is going to magically cause all these other things to vanish. And I think it's folly to think that way. And actually, you got to figure out how you are going to work within the system and improve the system versus go around or buck the system, because there really isn't any way to go around it.
What about Switzerland? What about Switzerland? I beg to differ. There's many loopholes around every country that allows higher echelon businessmen to operate outside of guidelines. I mean, we bitch every day about these billionaires not paying taxes. There's plenty of ways to go around everything.
But it's the laws that they're operating within the confines of the laws, unless they're operating fraudulently, and the laws have been set up by people who make decisions. That's why I'm suggesting that rather than trying to create something that's outside of the framework of agreement that everyone operates in and trying to create something separate, part of the goal should be to figure out how to make it operate and how to make that system operate better and how to enable that system to transition. Because there's little to no chance that you're going to create a separate system, because what does everybody measure the value of their cryptos in today, right? They measure it in oftentimes dollars, but in the currency that they're operating in. And that's just a fact, right?
But all right, respectfully, the way you sound right now is the reason why most things will never change. Working within the system does not change the system, it changes you.
Right? I respectfully disagree. I love you.
Hold on one second. Journalist, I've just seen you on mic a couple times. Did you want to chime in and then we'll keep going?
Yeah, I just want to add more nuance to this, because like both sides are kind of right. It's just, but when you think about where most of the Web3 community is, the platforms, the activity, right now it is all in the US, which would be greatly affected by this. However, if you're in New York right now and you're not supposed to be doing any crypto transactions at all, you can use VPNs and other methods in which to, circumvent your geolocation. So the same thing is happening in Russia now, when mining's supposed to be, banned, or in China where you're not supposed to be doing anything with crypto. It's still continuing to happen. So even with, laws and geolocal sort of boundaries, I think this black market idea that Lo's talking about, it will be alive and well. And at the same time, we cannot say that legislation will not affect the entire crypto community, because of where all of the innovative platforms and transactions and where all the KYC and all this stuff is going to, know your customer, doxing, all of that is mostly US led. Now, we may reach a point in time in the future where blockchain culture has evolved and matured to the point that there's no real epicenter. But right now, we are the epicenter of that. So whatever laws are passed here, legislation, it's going to affect the whole market heavily.
Legislation will super pumped up right now, because I'm so happy to have a space where we have like all sides of opinion. So I love the discussion. Keep it up. Let's go.
Axie's Infinities, right? Where's Axie's at? Where's the majority of that money was generated?
Philippines.
Right? That play to earn, PTE games. Where's the majority of that stuff going down? Asia, right? This is one of the biggest drivers of our market. Almost everything they're doing over there flies in the face of the SEC and the regulations over here. Almost everything they're doing over there is illegal compared to us.
But they've been doing it.
You think it's going to stop?
They've been doing it for decades, though.
This is what I'm saying, though. Do you think it's going to stop?
Of course it's not going to stop, but that's...
Do you think it's going to be some of the biggest things in the space? America is definitely already regulated against it. It's already illegal.
Well, we can mark the largest trading volume day in history was just May 1st of this year on OpenSea at $476 million in one day. That's just OpenSea, and they're like 90% of all the NFT traffic and everything. So that's why I feel like, because that is a stateside entity, they're going to be greatly affected by whatever happens. And if most, right now it's just weighted too much in the US, us really driving and leading the way with blockchain culture and technology. But I don't think it will always be that way. But definitely in the short run, it is.
How much OpenSea traffic is international?
Hold on, if I may, OpenSea, first of all, is like 80% scams. Second of all, OpenSea is nothing but a UI. It's just a viewable window that allows users to filter through information on blockchain, right? So let's say OpenSea is regulated. Let's say Coinbase is regulated. Don't use either of them, right? Use another way to facilitate your movement. You don't even need to use OpenSea. All you need is addresses, right? You can circumnavigate all of those. Those Americanized companies, the ones who put their mark here and build their roots here, will suffer the consequences of those actions. But the fact is, you shouldn't buy your crypto on Coinbase anyways, right? And things like that is just going to be what it is.
And I'm going to take a break right here just for a second, because we are about like 45 minutes or halfway through, and I have loved the discussion, and I appreciate you all sharing your own opinions and your respectful disagreement. It's actually great. This is how we all learn. I think it's important to hear multiple sides of an issue so that individuals can then take those variant pieces of information to form their own opinion and or do research. I will open it up also to the stage. We've had a couple new people join us up here. If you do want to join the conversation, please feel free to raise your hand. As an audience member, the same rules will apply. Please be respectful, and if I have to mute you, I will, but I will unmute you once it calms down. So feel free to raise your hand and keep on going. I really am enjoying the discussion tonight.
I just want to say about OpenSea. OpenSea is AOL. It seems too big to fail, but it's going to disappear at some point.
Your NFTs better be on chain then, and there's a lot of blockchain life.
I'm well aware.
So
Most
wait,
of them are not.
I want to pause there for a second. So Craig, your statement is OpenSea is going to go away. And like when you say things about like that, I think we're seeing like lots of kinds of like technology, platform, user enablement, UX, technology issues like within the space. But again, I'm going to pin things down a little bit to like, what time frame is that? Is that like everybody's freaking out right now, or that's in the future?
Oh, I think we haven't. Yeah, it's hard to tell because, you know, people say that Web3 is like 1997 internet right now, but because the internet's at scale and information flies so fast and the community is so large because it's easy to reach internationally. How long did it take AOL before it was really just didn't really have a real place in the space?
What do you say, 5 years? Did I say
Yeah.
5 years?
Yeah.
5 years.
Didn't it have a longer reign than that?
It had a build up. It had a good 5 to 10 year build up. No, my nigga, it was in and out of there by 10 years. 5 years.
Yeah.
5 year build up, 5 year dominance. Yeah.
CompuServe and Prodigy and some of those other services were around already too, and there were people that were members of those. So I mean, as a whole, online access.
It was that mail push, right? You think that mail push, once they started really doing the mailing the CDs, that they kind of took over, and then
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they raised a bunch of capital and they did huge marketing campaigns. And Steve Case.
One of the things we talked about earlier and just kind of skimmed over at that time was talking about some of these scams and rug pulls. Not getting into specific things or people. I'd love to hear from you all about what you think some of the dangers are. What are some of the things that we're seeing? What do we need to look out for? I'd love to hear from everybody on that as well.
Number one problem, the phone call is coming from inside the house. You are your worst enemy. The majority of what we call rug pulls and scams is dirty link clicking and ignorant seed phrase entering. Right? And then they're screaming for regulation. Why the hell did your dumbass think you won 14 Bored Apes? What's wrong with you? Who the hell do you think is giving that away? Huh? You're a maniac. And why do you think you won that?
FOMO is a bitch.
Yeah, it is. But so is stupidity. And greed.
Do that.
And greed. And you know better. You know how many times people come to me and before they start explaining the scam, they'll be like, "Nah, I knew I shouldn't have done this." Then what the fuck you bothering me for? This is the problem that we need to come to grips with. That a lot of the problems in the Web3 space are self-generated errors.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree at all. I do also think some of the things are getting a little bit more sophisticated, where they aren't as scammy, right, as the links, and especially as well we've seen with some of these DAOs. I do totally agree. I will admit, it was like 3 months ago, I think, I did something really fucking stupid. Like after all this time, I only lost $500. It didn't like impact my wallet, but it was like just dumb, right? Like it's like better. But it was like the perfect storm of just ignorance over like a 12-hour period of mine, which was fine. But I'm curious, like some of these things are getting more sophisticated, and you check things, and then people just take off.
Listen, I got caught by a hate beast, right? And I bought a fake one. I did the stupidest thing you could do, and I teach classes on not doing this. I was just tired, and I was lazy, and I lost $500. And that 500, you lost 500, I lost 500. That's $1,000 right there. That shit keeps accumulating. Those careless mistakes keeps accumulating,
and that's why they do it. That's why it works.
Yep.
But victim blaming, though, while it might feel good when you're in a position of knowing better, is not a strategy for improving the quality.
But losing freedom is not worth us protecting ourselves from ourselves.
Losing.
Yes. 100%.
Well, there's losing freedom, and then there's balancing risk. I think that losing freedom and balancing risk is probably a more.
You said it a nicer way, right? But there's
I mean it's not a nicer way.
The only true safety is inside of the cage.
Yeah,
the only way to really mitigate the risk is to be in bondage, protected by an overlord.
Again, victim blaming is not. That's like basically telling a woman that she was assaulted because of what she was wearing. It's the same argument.
No,
basically.
It's not. No,
it's exactly
because
the same
I raised
argument.
a daughter. No, it's not.
Absolutely the same argument. I have daughters too.
It's an argument of, listen, baby, don't put yourself in these situations ever.
Right.
Not don't wear that. It's not don't wear that. It's not don't wear that.
And so that means.
Oh, sorry, guys. I actually hit that by accident. Did I scare you?
It was good. No. That was good.
A little bit.
It was good.
That was awesome.
I was like, all right, I overstepped. I was like, all right, it's getting too sleazy here.
I'll come down. Keep going. Resume.
Well, yeah.
I'm not victim blaming, right?
I think it is.
I'm taking accountability for my mistakes.
That's true.
Right? I'm saying
that only goes so far, right? That's what I'm saying.
I'm also saying you can't say, right, that to protect you from making mistakes, we are going to disallow everybody else from being free because you might make a mistake.
But I think what Jacqueline was saying before is that as the attacks get more sophisticated, it goes beyond being just making a mistake, right? You can be spearphished, right? Let's say, and I come at this this way because I run a cybersecurity company, a managed cybersecurity company, and we also protect high net worth individuals and celebrities and things like that. And if you are you're correct, right? If you want to be able to leave the house and spend money, you have to have an interface with the rest of the world, right? And in doing so, when you look at that, you have to balance the risk of your activity, right? And the same applies in markets, right? I think if people go back and look in history, what markets and securities and investment was like in the United States in the 20s and 30s, they'll get a reminder of what happens when you remove all the barriers and all the rules, essentially. And I think that we're trying to search for this way to replace that using DAOs, assuming that DAOs are going to be able to replace the fallibility and or the corruptibility of people inside of these systems that we've built to this point, right? We want to replace all the systems with this new plumbing. But I don't think that we're going to replace the problem, right? And we've gone through this, and I say this because I went through a period working in healthcare, where healthcare went through a digital transformation, where the information on paper, right, was now stored electronically, right? Electronic health records. Before 2008, only about 5% of the healthcare system had electronic records, right? This has all happened very quickly. And what happened, though, was that the technology to facilitate that was embraced so quickly that they didn't look at the processes and the things that they were doing, right? They just embraced the technology and pasted it on top of bad processes. So essentially digitizing bad processes, when they had an opportunity to actually look at what they were doing, improve what they were doing, and then build systems to manage that better. And that's sort of what I'm saying, is that it doesn't make sense necessarily to throw out the entire system and try to replace it, because we all have to live within it, right? We all still have to buy diapers if we can find them, or formula if we can find it. And we still, all, or everyone around us, right, still needs to operate in that system. It's not like one day we're going to flip the switch and the blockchain crypto is going to be the only thing that anyone's using, right? We're very far away from that. And
the same guy who owned the pager company said that about the cell phone.
Well, maybe. I see where you're coming from. Like
Curious. Go ahead, keep finishing up, and then I'm just curious. I'm not used to journalists being this quiet. He may be pontificating.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to leave space here too and land my plane. I mean, it's just I've been in the game for a long time, and I'm not saying people are wrong. I'm just saying from my perspective, having worked in government, having been in open source for 20 years, having worked in enterprise, having started companies, having operated open source projects and community and all that sort of stuff. There's really a lot we can do with government, and we see this happening today, right? I mean, all of the politics and things that are happening around us, people are sort of trying to hack with the levers of government, and lean on the parts of it that were maybe more by convention and less by specifics, right? And that's where blockchain and DAOs and community projects like this tend to need the most input, is in the planning side and really thinking through the mechanics and how it works, right? That's why I'm saying, like, that kind of mindset and thinking applied then into our broader governance needs, it becomes the powerful thing, as opposed to saying, well, fuck it, and we'll just nuke it all and start over. So yeah, I'll end my point.
I'm all about the nuking it and starting over. I don't think putting a Band-Aid on a fucking bullet wound is going to help. I'm all about, I myself have not been working for the government. I've been fighting it my whole life. And I'm a firm believer that it is an evil, evil thing. And most governments are. They're made to fight each other. That is the point of a decentralized system, not to integrate it into a faulty way of life, but to fix our way of life. Crypto is a unified yes, that we are not going to do it this way anymore. We're going to do it that way. And it will happen overnight. Most kick-ass things do.
And now,
Mike, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I just want to add an observation, and this isn't an ageist statement, but they're the last real generation to want to really push back and fight and even talk about tearing everything down. That was like in the 60s. All those people,
they came close until the assassinations.
Yeah, and then they gave up and they bought into, now they're all the people running these companies and stuff that have totally forgot what they used to think like when they were doing their free love, smoking weed and doing acid.
They turned into Nate. No, they turned into
No.
They
don't believe that at all.
System. They turned into inside the system. They decided to work within the system, right? And then they got pensions and 401ks. You know what they said, right? They went down to City Hall with guns, talking about free my people, and they came back with jobs, talking about, look, man, you gotta, it takes time to change things, man. We gotta work within the system. I came to light fires at the corners and in the middle and burn this bitch down. I don't care about regulation. I don't care about anything but freedom. Freedom doesn't compromise with bondage.
That's just it, though, right? Unfettered freedom isn't free. It's actually tyranny.
It's ugly. It's ugly.
No, it's not ugly. So I guess you're suggesting that people in my family should die in the streets then because of your freedom? Then you're going to have a problem.
How did you go from 8 to 12?
I didn't. But
because
so basically what you're saying is that
that's right.
You're completely eliminating the system.
Exactly.
We're going to leave vulnerable people more vulnerable and create more vulnerable people. So it is actually what supports a lot of very vulnerable people. Yes, if you haven't noticed.
System, but see, look, here goes. Perfect example. It keeps you safe. It keeps me oppressed. Listen, no. It does. You just said so, right? You said the system is what keeps your family from being murdered in the street.
Well, no, I was using my family as an example.
But no,
a strong.
Let me finish.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna give you my internal view of what you just said. The system is what keeps murdering my family in the street. So here's where we come at a crossroads, right? There are people who want to keep the system because it protects them, and there are others who want to destroy the system because it oppresses them. That's the battle we're actually fighting right now.
But that's not what's happening, though. And that's not what I said.
This is what you brought. What did you say?
Hold on a second. So what I said, I was talking about my straw man family. I wasn't talking about my personal family. I was saying my family, hypothetically, is a family that is on the margins or relies on assistance. So we should get rid of the systems that provide that assistance to those people and let them suffer and starve to death to serve people's freedom.
Your family is a social security number made simply to make money. That's all your family is. It's a social security number that the government took a loan out and will then milk you. That's all your family.
Wait, Nate, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So, Nate, you're saying that because there are people who are poor and there may be some systems or programs in place to help some of them, obviously not all of them, but some of them, we should keep that system in place even though it is oppressing the majority of human beings on the planet. Because some of them helps, we should keep it.
I think the challenge is that are you familiar with dialectical thinking or the concept of dialectical? And I know
I'm pretty sure most people are not. So you might have to explain that.
Yeah. So a dialectical is something that can seem or be opposite, but can exist at the same time. Two truths can exist simultaneously about something at the same time, right? Like government's good and government's bad. That's a dialectical, right? And to eliminate and have sort of black and white thinking about subjects, like government's all bad or government's all good. I don't think really, I'm not saying either of those things, right? I'm saying that it's really more of a dialectical. And since reality is that it's a dialectical, it doesn't make sense to talk about throwing out it entirely, because then that just means that people you aren't talking or thinking about or that you don't know or you have no touch with are affected. Kind of like Roe versus Wade, right? Or kind of like Black Lives Matter, right? Or all of these things, right? So to say that to completely eliminate something or to take an extremist view is helpful is generally not. It might get attention, it might be exciting and interesting rhetoric, but it's not realistic and it's not possible in reality to do that unless you want to make the sacrifice of sacrificing my family in the street is the straw man family that I was talking about in the argument that was making. So does that make sense?
If you want to put into the shadows 90% of dastardly deeds to shine on 10% of minor duties to its citizens, then you feel free. But I think the rest of us are very aware that all of our money facilitates war and very evil deeds, and all policies are made to keep us down and them up. All of them. And if you feel the need to argue on behalf, go ahead. But I think you're going to have a hard time when you're talking to a crowd that's trying to partake in a movement that eliminates those functionalities.
Well, but I feel sometimes, Nate, hold on, wait. I feel sometimes like you're an agent provocateur. Like,
straight the fuck up.
Up, bro. It's like sometimes I feel like where do you insert these topics into these conversations with these people? It bugs me out.
Because I have the experience, Lo, and I am very much part of this community. I have a company that I started 8 years ago.
I know you are. That's why I called you an agent provocateur, because it's not
like
you're not here.
I'm not an agent provocateur. I mean, I have an opinion.
No, but right? Listen, wait. All right. So, in context, understand what I'm saying, right? That you're provoking us to an angle that I think is contrary to the revolution, right? That is really a way to dismantle the revolution.
Explain that. Really, it's interesting observation.
Absolutely.
Because what you're doing is you're inserting concepts. Let's say we're sitting in the jungle, right? We're around a bonfire. There's a bunch of revolutionaries here, and you keep going, hey guys, if we structure ourselves like the Senate that we're trying to take down, you know what I mean?
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Am I the only one hearing that? Wait, can we take
I second that. That's what I'm hearing. That's exactly putting a band-aid on a fucked up system.
Well, I appreciate you explaining.
Paul, let's go ahead and hear from you, Paul, a little bit as to why you feel that's what you're hearing. And then, of course, we'll give Nate an opportunity to be able to rebuttal from there. So, Lo, thank you. And we know Lo's feelings. Now, Paul, I'd love to hear yours, because it sounds like, Paul, you and Lo totally agree. So chime in.
If we're sitting here talking about a DAO, what we're talking about is the ability to facilitate public functionality, right? To, as a group, decide we want to collectively perform a good deed and facilitate it properly, right? And more importantly, have transparency and oversight. So my question is, why do we need to save this dying entity in order to keep that institution alive? To me, that doesn't make sense. That is 100% contradictory to what this cause is. It is against a central banking system. It is against an oppressive nature of over-regulation. It is against every boundary that's placed upon human existences and eliminating that, so we as humans can connect border to border, extend past them, human to human transactions at an equal level. I have artists from all around the world whose number one problem is the way they make money in their country won't even allow them to buy a hamburger in fucking LA. Right. And this is a global issue. And when you want to talk about value that we base our currency on, well, before, the primitive way was oil, right? And then gold becomes a standard as well, right? And all of these things are what we base money transactions on. Well, let me enlighten you. Data is worth more than all of them. And so is content. You ingest more content than you do food and water. And when you think of Ethereum blockchain and smart contract transactions, holding and securing data in a decentralized form, what you have is absolute security backing transactions, a growth of not just industry because of the connectivity amongst the world, but the growth of a financial institution that will rapidly overcome the one we are accustomed to. And it's enslavement that functions through government and fucking regulation, for Christ's sakes. Everything he said is contradictory to this movement and this very discussion. He is a fucking agent.
I would like to understand. Hold on one second. I'd like to understand.
Fascist is the first word the government uses to discredit you. And it used to be hippie. It used to be pot smoker. It used to be a lot of things, right? And that's what this whole cancel me shit's all about.
You'd be happy to have people dying in the streets for your belief.
Okay, cool. Just needed you guys to stop for a second. As it relates to Nate, is there anybody here on stage that would like to speak in support of what Nate is saying?
Well,
if not, Nate, you're on your own.
I'm just going to say, just knowing Nate, he is quite a provocateur, but I think that sometimes, far left and far right meet in very strange rooms. And the interesting thing about, the blockchain ethos in general is if you go far left enough, you're going to meet far right here in crypto. So like there are conflicting ideas and ambitions with the very same like technology and financial system. It gets quite muddy. And so, the idea about talking about politics or religion or sex, when it comes to cocktail parties, I think we're in the same space where I know that Nate firmly believes in this system, this new industrial revolution that we're in, or he wouldn't be launching ventures into it. So I think there's perspective born of time, but I go back to that 60s thing where I feel like people decided that the fight should be fought a different way. And now we're coming back around to more 60s thought again, 50 years later. And we have people that are like, fuck it, burn the whole thing down. Let's Arab Spring this whole thing. And I question whether that can ever happen in our country simply because of the military complex.
That is how our country was founded.
Well, true, but they've been studying and initiating these in other countries and hanging out with the countries fighting this stuff enough that I think they now know how to prevent it from happening here. That's just my take.
So journalists, can I ask you, do you not think that it has been being done to us for the last 15, 20 years? You don't think that outside forces have been strategically destabilizing our country, using racism and greed to quietly usurp the political parties in our country and turn them into rabid ideologues and to have our the country has been destabilized. I grew up in Haiti, right? I watched it happen. I'm watching this country disintegrate before my eyes. It's happening right now. It's happening live. And the usual last push you need over the edge is the economic crisis. And we're here now.
But there's no government here that's gonna step down because the people all took to the streets and started burning shit and turning.
You really think that won't happen?
No, because we've got an industrial, military, and police system.
So tell me this. All right, let me show you this world. 2025. It's January 20th, 2025. Trump won, right? And the Democrats have decided they're not going to inaugurate this nigga. What happens in this country?
As it relates to DAOs. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, nightmare. I hope we never have to live through. But I'm pretty sure all of your minds race to a correct place.
Well, somebody still controls the military and the police. As conflicted as a lot of those people might be, I think your own survival of you and your family means if I'm getting the salary, I show up to work, they tell me to do this, I'm going to do it. That's where I think we are with that.
Hey, Mr. Hand, you're awfully quiet up there. I'm harassing some folks in the audience to come up and join on the conversation. Do you have anything to share here, Garrett, or perspective?
I'm enjoying. It's a deep conversation.
I love it.
I'm actually enjoying it a lot. I'm about to grill some skirt steak. I feel like I'm going to deter the conversation. It's so deep. I'm mostly absorbing it.
Cool, love it. No problem.
I have one statement I want to say that, like, earlier we talked about how the world will eventually be broken up into decentralized and centralized countries, and then with the power of the internet and even social media, love it or hate it, and decentralization, we don't need to live in the United States. The United States could fall apart simply because the citizens leave, quite honestly. Like, the company I work for currently is in a different fucking country. Like, I'm never going to visit their office. It's very unlikely, at least. So, it's just the power of the internet. I think, I wonder, I don't know what there's a stat, but I wonder how many people have denounced their citizenship to the United States simply because of the regulation that does exist around crypto, and they know where it's going? I'm curious.
I think what is, how do you pronounce that? Emigration versus immigration is going to be the story of America in the 21st century. I think there's going to be a flood of expats out of here. I think we're going to export American culture all over the world. I think it's inevitable because of the things that Nate was talking about, because of the regulation, because of the chopping off your nose to spite your face, right? You don't want them to have money, fine. They won't have money in your country. They'll have it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And the military industrial complex may have to gear up to go to some country where there's so many damn Americans who aren't paying their taxes here. I could see that also happening. And I could also see them getting their ass kicked by some new weapons that they didn't expect.
I see we also, thanks Lo, we have two new speakers to the stage. We have Earplug and we have Brent from the Glimmering. So feel free to chime in, guys.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? I just, what I'm hearing is, I don't know why everybody is really like turning a blind eye to how this quote unquote country was formed, right? And then the thing that they dangle in front of your face is money. So the economic system, and that's where we're working on a whole different economic system where it's peer-to-peer transactions to where we could trade and barter within ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So, like the United States, this corporation hasn't always been here, and the way that it was formed was through bloodshed and blood in the streets, or just across across the whole country. So, I just don't understand why people are turning a blind eye to that. Like the whole structure of it is off of the backs of people that was murdered and shit like that. So. Like if you just want to make it seem like it was elegantly taken, it's kind of weird on your part. Peace.
Yeah, Jax, thanks for having me up here. What our brother just said right there is certainly got a lot of truth to it, right? No question that what is the United States of America was born on the backs of a lot of people who got totally screwed in building it for others while they got no equity out of it. And as a white man, I don't really have the answers, nor am I even qualified to say. The only thing that I tend to hold in my heart on a human level is that whenever we talk in absolutes, the only risk we have is being wrong, right? Because everything is gray and it ain't easy to figure out. And I think everybody on this stage, and I showed up probably a little bit late, but I came into a spirited argument, and I admire all of you for being able to have it civilly. I've heard some name calling, but very little, and it wasn't atrocious, right? But whenever we try to instantly pit absolute one against absolute two, then what we're pretty much doing is driving to absolute zero. And I see the concern around regulation, but dismissing it all, I could see how people in power would try to deregulate things in a way that only increases their power. So for me, it's hard to say or see how all deregulation is going to be empowering to all, when some of those who are trying to deregulate things today are doing it in a way that only favors themselves. And again, I don't have all the answers. I just encourage an embrace of the gray and the nuance. And it ain't easy. I wish I had more answers for it, but that's just kind of my take.
Thanks, Brent. Anyone want to comment or build or add on to what Brent said, and or agree, disagree, endorse?
I want to say that I think Nate is right. I want to make that point, right? I don't think you're wrong in saying what you're saying, Nate. I'm saying that we need to stop what you're saying from happening. I'm saying that it is our jobs as revolutionaries to make sure that he's wrong. He's probably right that this system can't be changed. Right? We should do our best to make him wrong and change this motherfucker. And to piggyback off what both the Glimmering and Earplug said, what you say shouldn't happen, right? Do we want the blood in the streets? Do we want your straw man family killed? You got to understand, this system that you're talking about was built off those families being killed. There is no America without violent revolution, period. Right? Not the American Revolution, the War 1812, the Civil War. It just doesn't stand without people willing to give up their lives for the future. Right? To give up their freedom, their comfort for the future and fight for it. You have to. Or you're going to just be a coaster. You're going to be a free-range slave, right? You won't know who your master is. You won't know where your next meal is coming from. But you will be a slave.
We have about 9 minutes left. So I'd love to hear if there's anybody else who wants to come up and share, great. And if not, I'd love to hear from everybody who's been up here on the stage today as sort of your final takeaway thought. What is the one thing that you would like to know the folks here to still know from your perspective? And then we will wrap things up. As I mentioned before, all of you will be sent the recording once we have it to use as you would like. So final thoughts, sort of like, where's your leaving position here? Journalist, you want to give us a start here?
Yeah, I'd just like to, lighten the tone before we get out of here and just remind everybody we're all going to die.
This is 100% true.
You can argue
and I'll
that.
see you on the other side.
There's no way to prove that unless you come kill me. Anyways.
There's evidence.
Greg, did you want to give a takeaway thought? A takeaway thought. What am I mixing up words here? A takeaway thought.
Wait, did I waste mine? Did I waste mine with that?
No,
I just wanted
you can
to say
go back.
that.
I didn't know if you were done. You paused. So
just
no,
real
go
democracy.
back. Micah, you got it.
Yeah, just real democracy, the way that it was, maybe intended by the people who wrote things like the Constitution and stuff. It is a DAO structure. So if we can figure this out and we can automate a lot of things, then we're going to take the human factor as far away from this as possible. And that's the only way we're going to have like equity and fair distribution and so many other things.
Thanks, Micah.
Yeah, I see the vision of that. I think the overarching concern for me is that whatever structure we design together inherently is going to bring all the human flaws that we had when we designed it, right? And it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be tried and we shouldn't strive to be better humans and more equitable and more inclusive and more thoughtful in how we approach everybody despite their opinions. But to me, it also seems helpful, at least for my own sanity, to acknowledge that wherever we go next, we're still bringing our own human flaws to what we're building, and be patient with that. While also not accepting bullshit or assholes.
100.
And for the record, I've been on this call for just under an hour, and I don't think any of you people come across as full of bullshit or assholes, right?
Right.
You're good folks who are here having a discussion civilly to find solutions, but it just still seems to keep coming back to that. Like, I'm a flawed human being. I'm trying to lead something new with a bunch of people I haven't even met in real life, and I care about them, and I believe that we can all do it together. But I also know I'm bringing my own bullshit to the thing, and how can I extract as much of that as possible and just try to evolve and be better.
For weekly therapy sessions, you may contact Brent. No, just kidding. Who else would like a closing remark?
I have
Thank you, Brent.
Giant bag of mushrooms if y'all need it.
Yeah, there you go. Who else would like to chime in? Final thoughts. What do you want to leave us with?
Yeah. So this entire the system we live in general, the centralized world, right, is business is B2C. Business is customer, business consumer, business to creator, business to community. You can even say it's government to citizen, but what we're building in Web3 is C2B. It's customer to business. It's consumer to business, creator to business. We are in control. We have more power than many realize, and we just need to keep on building instead of top down. We got to build bottom up.
Love that.
Nate, Lo, you guys want to give us a takeaway thought, earplug? Garrett, I think Garrett's cooking. Anyone else?
Mine is real simple. Look, mine is real simple. The revolution will be tokenized. We're coming.
Love it. Nate?
I actually have one last.
Oh no, go ahead. Whoever just spoke up.
One last thought, and I say this every podcast I'm in, but whatever side of the coin we are on, wherever we are, there's just one thought I like to share. And while you're doing it, while you're doing who you are, be a nice human.
Yeah, you're right.
Indeed. Nate, earplug. You guys want to chime in?
I was just going to say I had a lot of time to talk, so I won't say much. Thank you, and I wish we didn't have to stop.
I love it. Well, we're going to have like lots more ongoing discussions, and I loved that we had a chance to like open it up tonight, and the fact that it was like lively and we had folks in like means that it's something that we really need to keep discussing, right? Because ultimately we're all in sort of the same position here. So I love that. Earplug, did you want to close us out with anything?
I don't know. I mean, I think self-awareness is probably one of the biggest things that could be a cure to, any individual when you look around and you pay attention to the landscape that we're in right now. So, before you pay anything, pay attention.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I really enjoyed our discussion tonight, and I'd like to invite everybody back next week. We will be talking about NFT utility. Thanks to every one of our speakers on the stage. If you've been here listening and are not already following either your co-hosts and your co-speakers or the folks down below, please go ahead and give them a follow. And I will look forward to sending out everybody here the recording. And thank you. And I'm excited to further discussion with each and every one of you. I hope to have you all back on live again.
Thanks for your leadership on the call, Jax.
You bet. Take care.
Y'all have a good night.
Later, guys. Later, y'all.
Nice human out.
Thank you.